Every country seems to have that one kitchen drawer nobody dares to open, the one stuffed with mysterious odds and ends that have likely been fermenting since 2009. You suspect something unsettling lurks inside, and you are fairly certain you are better off not confirming it. Australia has its own version of that drawer. Instead of being tucked away in a kitchen, it stretches across an entire collection of small towns scattered throughout New South Wales, places the tourism board would rather you not search for after midnight. Behind the postcard-perfect coastline, the flat whites, and the Sydney Harbour fireworks lies another side of New South Wales. This is a version that carries the scent of damp stone and old secrets, where silence presses against your eardrums until you start hearing things that are probably not there. Probably. These are towns where locals lower their voices when discussing what happened, where dogs refuse to pass certain buildings, and where stories told in the pub arrive with a heavy serving of existential dread. Today, we are counting down the 10 creepiest small towns in New South Wales. Not the charming villages with weekend farmers markets and organic sourdough. These are places where populations plummeted from thousands to mere dozens, and no one can quite explain why people left in such a hurry. We are talking about tunnels that once stored chemical weapons, homesteads where a man was chained inside a stable for 3 decades, cemetery photographs showing children who died 60 years apart appearing side by side, and entire towns the government cut off from civilization by flooding the only road. This is the New South Wales you will not find in any glossy brochure. So turn on the lights, glance behind the couch, and whatever you do, avoid reading this alone in a caravan park after dark. Number 10. Kiandra, the frozen ghost town buried under snow and silence. Deep in the snowy mountains, roughly 85 kilometers northwest of Kincoban along the Snowy Mountains Highway, there once stood a town called Kiandra. Technically, it still appears on maps, but in much the same way a chalk outline on a footpath still technically represents a person. Most of the buildings have vanished. The residents are entirely gone. What remains feels like a geographic scar, a reminder that 10,000 people once lived, laughed, drank, fought, and dug gold from the earth here. Now, wind and snow dominate the landscape, interrupted only by the slow, indifferent waddle of a wombat moving through the ruins of human ambition. Gold was discovered in 1860, and within months Kiandra erupted into existence like a bushfire in January. 15 hotels and 30 stores sprang up as miners flooded in from every colony and half the globe, each convinced they were on the brink of fortune. A 9-kilogram nugget was extracted from ancient river deposits beneath the basalt cap of Newcham Hill. For a brief, glittering moment, Kiandra was the place to be. Then the gold ran dry, and the town became somewhere nobody wished to remain. By the 1930s, it was largely abandoned. The final permanent resident departed in 1974, after which the National Parks and Wildlife Service demolished most remaining structures, an act that felt like kicking a town already lying defeated. What unsettles visitors most is not simply the emptiness but the magnitude of it. Standing there, you can still trace the outlines of streets, foundations, and pathways worn into the earth by 10,000 feet. In winter, thick snow and bone-aching cold blanket everything, as if the land itself is trying to erase the memory. Bushwalkers camping nearby have reported hearing distant laughter, music, and the clink of glasses from pubs that vanished over a century ago. Old photographs from the 1860s show women in full Victorian dress snowshoeing through the bush and a mailman delivering letters on skis. Finding such images in a place uninhabited for 50 years tends to make people drive home a little faster. Kiandra holds 2 historical distinctions. It is recognized as the birthplace of Australian skiing and was Australia's highest town for more than a century. Norwegian and Scandinavian miners introduced skiing in the 1860s to navigate brutal winters. The Kiandra Ski Club attempted a revival in the mid-20th century, constructing chalets and installing Australia's first T-bar lift. Even recreation failed to anchor the settlement. The mountain reclaimed it all. On certain winter nights, fog rolls and so thick visibility disappears. Temperatures plunge well below freezing, and the scattered foundations fade into white nothingness. When dawn finally lifts the fog, revealing the frozen silence, it becomes difficult to shake the feeling that Kiandra is not entirely empty, just occupied by something unseen. Number 9. Milparinka, the outback town where the heat drives people mad. 16 hours by car from Sydney. Consider that for a moment. In less time, you could fly to Bali or watch the extended editions of all 3 Lord of the Rings films twice. You could reassess every life choice you have made and still have time to form new ones. After those 16 hours, you reach Milparinka, a scattering of restored colonial buildings baking under temperatures that often exceed 45 degrees Celsius, ruins eroded by relentless wind, and a single functioning business, the Albert Hotel. It is not just the only place to buy a drink. It is the only operational business in town. At its peak, Milparinka housed around 300 residents and boasted 4 hotels. Located on Evelyn Creek, it attracted prospectors during the gold rush. Beer arrived by camel, as one might expect in such terrain. Eventually, the gold vanished, water supplies faltered, and the oppressive heat proved overwhelming. The air shimmers, thoughts blur, and you begin wondering whether breathing should feel like inhaling from an oven. Today, 3 national parks surround the settlement, lending its stark beauty. The cemetery tells of lives cut short by thirst, violence, and the harshness of the outback. If your car failed at night, help would be hours away. Visitors describe a silence so complete that their own heartbeat feels intrusive. Without light pollution, the Milky Way stretches overhead like a tear in the darkness, emphasizing both the beauty and indifference of the universe. Number 8. Dalmorton, the forgotten goldfields town with the Whispering Tunnel. North of Grafton in the Clarence River Valley, tucked along a road bypassed by the modern highway, lie the remains of Dalmorton. In the 1860s, roughly 1,000 residents and between 7 and 13 pubs filled its streets. There was a courthouse, police station, school, and the chaos typical of gold fever. By 1877, only 1 pub and 3 stores remained. A short-lived revival as a timber town followed in the 1920s and 30s, but once the highway diverted traffic elsewhere, the post office closed in 1966 and the town faded from meaningful existence. The convict tunnel, despite being built with low-cost labor rather than convicts, stands as its most unsettling feature. Carved by hand through solid rock, it chills visitors even in summer. People describe icy pockets of air, sensations of being watched, and voices echoing from deep within. Whether these sounds stem from strange acoustics or lingering spirits, walking alone through that tunnel in an abandoned settlement does not qualify as relaxing. Dalmorton feels like stepping into a crack in time, where vines swallow walls and trees grow through old floors. The tunnel remains, exhaling cold air and holding its secrets. Number 7. Eurandary, the silver town history drowned. Once home to 2,000 people, Eurandary thrived with a police station, courthouse, post office, school, hotel, 2 butchers, 3 churches, and a movie theater. World War I, a Spanish flu outbreak, and an 18-month miners' strike, the longest labor dispute in world history at the time, crippled it. The construction of Warragamba Dam then flooded the only road to Sydney, effectively severing its lifeline. Between 1900 and 1912, mines yielded more than 5 million ounces of silver, nearly 10,000 ounces of gold, and over 12,000 tons of lead. Today, the preserved buildings stand accessible only by 4-wheel drive or small aircraft. Reports persist of an antique hand-wound phone ringing without being wound and sightings of a woman in a black dress pacing corridors. GPS systems often fail to recognize the location. Even satellites seem unsure it exists. Number 6. Joaja, the Scottish Valley time swallowed. Hidden about 90 minutes south of Sydney in the Southern Highlands, Joaja emerged in the late 1870s as a kerosene shale mining town established by the Australian Kerosene Oil and Mineral Company. More than 1,300 primarily Scottish workers and families were brought in. Oxen transported goods for a decade. The town became self-sufficient with a theater, butcher, bakery, school of arts, and early telephone service. A distillery and brewery reflected its Scottish heritage. American crude oil from Texas eventually undercut shale kerosene. By 1911, the town was sold to an orchard and left to decay. Crumbling retorts and overgrown cemeteries, filled with Scottish names and numerous children's graves, remain. Infant mortality proved devastating. Though a modern distillery operates nearby, The valley feels like it remembers everything. Number 5. Nimbin, the counterculture dream that curdled. About 30 kilometers north of Lismore and 70 west of Byron Bay, Nimbin, transformed after the 1973 Aquarius Festival, drew thousands of alternative lifestyle seekers. The event notably sought permission from traditional landowners, a pioneering act. Communes formed, permaculture thrived, and Nimbin gained fame as Australia's counterculture capital. Yet beneath rainbow murals and tie-dye lies complexity. Cannabis, though illegal in NSW, is openly sold. Visitors sometimes report uneasy atmospheres and strange social dynamics. The nearby Nimbin rocks hold deep indigenous significance as the resting place of the rainbow serpent, Woggle. Environmental activism and community warmth coexist with tension between idealism and reality. When tourism slowed during COVID, the fragility of the town's half-century dream became more visible. Number 4. Silverton, the near-abandoned film set. 26 kilometers northwest of Broken Hill, Silverton's population of 48 contrasts sharply with its former 3,000 residents. After silver discoveries in 1888, prosperity followed until richer deposits at Broken Hill triggered mass relocation. Homes were literally transported away. By 2007, over 140 productions, including Mad Max 2, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and Wake and Fright, had filmed here. The town feels suspended between authenticity and performance. The Silverton Hotel anchors it, decorated with film memorabilia. Rusted cars and sculptures dot the desert. At night, the outback's silence feels tangible, and the horizon itself seems hostile. Number 3. Hill End, where 8,000 vanished. Between Bathurst and Mudgee lies Hill End, once home to 8,000 people, 28 pubs, and the richest quarter-mile on Earth after a massive reef gold discovery in 1872. Today, 111 residents remain. Buildings stand preserved yet empty. Paranormal tours describe apparitions, shadows, and unexplained phenomena. Guests at the Royal Hotel report objects moving and cold spots in summer. The cemetery looms large. Silence fills streets once crowded with thousands, making visitors unconsciously hold their breath. Number 2. Junee, home to Monte Cristo Homestead. Junee appears charming, with a railway museum and a licorice and chocolate factory. Yet Monte Cristo Homestead, built in 1885 by Christopher William Crawley, dominates its reputation. Crawley died in 1910. His widow Elizabeth became a recluse for 23 years. Stories include a maid's fatal fall, Harold chained in a coach house for 30 years, a stable boy burned alive, and numerous tragic deaths. Later owners reported animals refusing entry and lights behaving inexplicably. Visitors claim to experience pushes, hair pulling, temperature drops, and moving objects. Featured on Ghost Hunters International and other programs, Monte Cristo remains synonymous with concentrated horror. Number 1. Picton, Australia's most haunted town. 80 kilometers from Sydney, Picton holds dozens of ghost stories. The Red Bank Range Railway Tunnel, nicknamed the Mushroom Tunnel, stored mustard gas during World War II. Emily Bollard, struck by a train in 1916, reportedly haunts it as a faceless white figure. Other deaths, including a beheaded man in 1884 and a 1954 murder of pseudoscientist Olaf Perkman, add to its grim history. St. Mark's Church and Cemetery yield photographs of children believed to have died decades apart. The Imperial Hotel, former maternity hospital, Stone Quarry Creek, and numerous cottages all carry reports of paranormal activity. Ghost tours ran from the late 1990s to 2011 until trespassing thrill seekers forced closure. Picton feels less like a town with ghost stories and more like a ghost story wrapped in a town. That it lies under 90 minutes from Sydney makes it more disturbing. You could brunch in Surrey Hills, meet a ghost in Picton, and still be home for dinner, though perhaps without appetite. From frozen settlements in the snowy mountains to homesteads where men were chained for decades, from tunnels once filled with chemical weapons to cemeteries where children appear in photographs 60 years apart. These are the 10 creepiest small towns in New South Wales. If you made it this far without switching on another lamp or glancing over your shoulder, you are braver than most. Cheers, mate.